Good morning and welcome to the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce Group and to today's webinar on employee wellbeing whilst working remotely during the current situation. Please be advised this webinar is being recorded and is available to listen to again and to share via our webinar library on the Thames Valley Chamber website. I'm Narinda Multani, Account Manager here at the Thames Valley Chamber. I work with businesses in the Thames Valley and I've worked closely with my member Julie Provino with her membership. So Julie will be delivering today's webinar, so if you have any questions, please post them in the chat box. I'm now going to hand you over to Julie, who will introduce herself and commence with today's webinar.
Thank you, Narinda. Good morning, everybody. And thank you for your introduction, Narinda. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to deliver this short webinar on employee well-being. So my company is called Very HR. We are an outsourced HR provider for UK as well as international businesses. So this is what I look like on a good day. Luckily enough, there are no webcams happening right now, so you are not having my COVID-19 look, which is slightly more disheveled. But just a bit of background as to who I am. I'm the owner of Very HR. Also have had a HR career for the last 23 years in some of Thames Valley's finest tech companies, as well as being an NLP trainer. I also do hypnosis, coaching, mindfulness, and so on. And let me state the obvious. The world has obviously completely changed. In fact, I like to, well, I don't like to, but mirror, use this image to actually explain what seems to have happened in the last couple of weeks and months. This COVID-19 has pretty much been a literal tsunami for businesses out there. Were we expecting it? Maybe, maybe not. What we know for sure is that the world of business will never be the same again. Being part of some discussions within the HR world, things have become very interesting in terms of the future outlook, the impact that home working has had for all of us. I really found this brief graph rather interesting, as it really talks about all of the different industries internationally and how every single business has been impacted. For some, like Zoom, for example, this is a significant business opportunity. For others, such as the smaller businesses, it has been a significant challenge. Some businesses are on the brink of closing, and others are really searching for the next innovation out there to survive and potentially thrive. So this is a significant time of change, of turmoil for business owners, for HR, people managers, and employees. And one of the key foundation of any business out there is your people. We see that, we hear it a lot, your people are your biggest asset. Well, what does that actually mean? It really is, that little space between our ears, our mental capacity or physical capacity is what contributes to a business. It's putting different minds together and making them operate efficiently in some way to actually get the best performance possible for your business. Without your people, you have nothing. And looking at employee well-being, I like to mirror it to engagement. So at the moment, it is clear that with everything happening, everyone, even yourself, as you're sitting in your chair listening to my voice right now, everyone has other things on the mind. You know, what will happen to my family? What will happen to my loved ones? Will I still have a job at the end of this? Will I still have a business at the end of this? And overall employee engagement, morale, and well-being has been impacted. There are tons of studies that are being made. Here are some numbers that I've found on, obviously, the trusted source that is the internet, but we'll go on that to prove a point. There is a lower engagement. There are, obviously, as everybody is working remote, lower levels of communication, and a lot of people are worried about the future. You know, you just have to spend 5 minutes checking the news, and it talks about how our economy is going and how this crash is going to have impact for many years. So the outlook is pretty glum for a lot of us, and that will have an impact on overall performance. So this webinar is really geared on employee engagement, which will have an impact on, you know, your productivity, your profitability, how well your customers are being serviced by your employees, and so on. Hopefully, you are all aware as to how, you know, overall engagement has a great impact on employee performance. So here's, for those who might be interested in the theory, here's what happens typically when we go through change as humans. And I think it's really important to understand this particular graph, to understand what's happening in terms of individual as well as group wellness. And we pretty much can all relate to this, or even plot ourselves on this particular Kubler-Ross change curve. Initially, through this change process, a change is announced and everybody goes through shock. Then we go through a period of denial, then obviously a period of frustration, depression. Now, this is when engagement goes down. Obviously, the curve is going down. At this point, as an employee or even as a business owner, when you hit the blue phase of depression or even frustration, you can either maximize communication or spark motivation. If that fails, the employee typically has an option, which is look for another job. Obviously, right now, the market is nearly non-existent. There are only a few roles available. So employees don't have a choice but to stick with what they have. And that is even more dangerous for businesses right now. Let me explain. An employee who is disengaged, who might be depressed, frustrated, or still in denial, will actually be a disruptor of your employee culture. They might sit at their desk, do their daily minimum, or be so distracted that they end up making more mistakes, which obviously in turn will cost you money. So this phase is one, you know, as a HR and well-being professional, one that I really keep my eyes and ears on and support businesses in looking how we can readdress that curve. So go into bring employees from denial, frustration, depression into the experiment phase, into the decision phase, and then integration. This is superbly important in terms of assessing where your employees, your managers, or even yourself are at, so you can do something about it, so you can plan. And putting in place core employee programs or well-being programs will help shorten that curve. And that's what we're looking to do. Anyone in a process of change needs to go through all of these phases. And it is a natural process of acceptance, and I would call it even rebirth. So it is our role as companies to help employees transition from one to the next stage with ease and making it effortless for them.
So Julie, just quickly on that slide. So is there companies out there which are considering employee assistant programs? Have you been approached by any companies who are looking to, to look into those for their employees?
So I will be covering this later.
Okay.
There's a lot of discussions out there around employee assistance program. They obviously have their value. Let me touch upon that
Yeah.
later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So what we're looking to do, this is a significant opportunity, and I really want to highlight, put in bold, put lots of little sparkles around it. It is a significant opportunity to changing work attitudes. Right now, there are a lot of people, as I said, worried, disengaged, depressed, going under shock. The way to work with these individuals in a humanistic way, in a well-being way, will help them to ultimately be even more performing, bring others on board, really work with your brand. The world, I would argue that the world of employee management is done. We do not manage employee anymore. We manage humans. We work with humans in the beautiful complexity that humankind is about. We can see it in the news and out there. There's a lot of press around all these good deeds that are happening. People sacrificing their time, money, efforts, or using their skills for the greater good. And this is definitely a lesson for us in business in terms of what wellness is, and where this opportunity comes, because it is an opportunity to really hone on this and bring your staff, your people, even the people that you will hire in the future, bring them on board with all of the positive learnings that we're making. So in terms of, I'm out of breath now. In terms of how to get there, the first thing is there is no such things as over communicating. In my HR career, and still today when I perform my audits, I always receive the feedback that management or leadership are not communicating enough. And it really comes to the leadership team to work on this aspect of communication. Communication is not only about throwing out words out there, or writing an email hoping that everybody will read it. It's about understanding where your employees are at and speaking in a trustworthy way. Of course, there are some challenges in being completely transparent. I will never openly, send an email to all my team going, I'm considering closing the business because, we're not generating the revenue that we need. That would spark confusion, stress, fear, and so on. However, people just want to be heard and listened to. Looking at how do they communicate, what are your formal communication models and what are your informal ones. You may want to have the leadership or the business owner send out an email, but at the same time participate in the WhatsApp groups, or send out some information through Slack, or even have those one-to-ones. So also, with regards to this, I find it really interesting in my line of business as HR. A lot of businesses really think that it is the role of HR to send out, company-wide messaging. Of course, we are supposed to be the experts, and we're supposed to be the people department. However, it has so much more value when it comes from the business owners, the ones that actually are in the field with employees, the ones that actually deliver, performance management, or, set goals for the organization. So it's looking at using different ways and different communication models to get out a clear messaging. Typically, I like to practically have an Excel sheet open in front of me with what is it that we need to communicate. So there, it would be around pulling out your company values, or talking about how we want to be more flexible in our approach, or how we want to service our customers. Whatever big themes you want people to get from your communication. So first column, put down your themes, and then look at who will be communicating what when. It takes 3 times for a message to be heard, understood, and acknowledged. So sending a note once to employees probably will not be as efficient as sending out a note or doing a WebEx and then following up in Teams, having somebody else take on the role, or even putting you know, I don't know, sending out some cards to your employees, or putting something on the banter groups and so on. So communication is something that needs to happen all of the time, especially right now that employees are being remote. It's about thinking creatively as to how you can actually reach out to your employees, how you can make sure that they are okay, and so on. So the first point was around being honest and transparent, and then setting a frequent rhythm and changing the communication channels frequently. It's always good, and this is where, you know, a HR department, an EA, or someone actually can own this as a project, so that we can make sure that communication does happen and that we don't lose the ball. When we started going into lockdown, I know a lot of the businesses that are support employees were thirsty for what is going to happen to us. How are we going to manage our day to day? Or I have children at home that I need to look after. What is that going to mean to me with regards to my work? A simple "I don't know and I will find out" sometimes does help to alleviate, or "I don't know, I will find out and I will tell you by this date." It kind of alleviates some of the stress. So having a central point of contact with, you know, what are the key themes, what do we need to address, who's communicating what and where, really helps to manage this communication project. And I can't emphasize enough that this is critical, especially in these times of change, to really reassure employees and bring them to the overall mission of the company. Right. And, you know, when you think about it, and this is what I found really interesting in this whole period of change, is that before we could actually see our employees, well, most of the time, except for, you know, I working on an international basis. Obviously, I cannot grab a coffee with my colleagues in Indonesia, for example. However, there was a lot more face-to-face contact. And what happens with face-to-face is that you can read someone's body language cues. You can actually see, are they being distracted at work? And there's this beautiful thing called tacit knowledge diffusion, which is, you know, all of that stuff about how we do our jobs that is not written down, that, you know, basically is your intellectual property, is that gray matter. When you have informal events or team events, this is where that knowledge gets shared. This is where people are more comfortable in picking up the phone to John and saying, "I have a problem." Today, we're stuck at our desks. We have little engagement with others. I know now I'm speaking to a lot of business owners who are completely zoomed out, sick of having another Zoom meeting. I know other businesses that have decided to have Friday dress-up days.
We do that as a chamber. Well, we have a like a happy hour, which is quite interactive on a Friday, which is hosted by our chief executive. So it's quite good because it's engaging and it's just takes you on another level.
Exactly. We are not robots. You know, I'm quite glad that, you know, the mindset of what I call the 80s, you know, bring an employee, sit them to their desk at 9, and know that they'll finish work at 5, and they'll be robots and produce all of this in the space of their 8 hours of work. That's gone now. You know, you are hiring humans, humans who enjoy interacting, who need this social aspect at work. Same thing, you know, I'm behind my screen right now talking with you, and I know that I have 2 children downstairs watching TV, so I'm slightly distracted. I have 3 screens in front of me. One with WhatsApp, my email, everything, you know, at any point could start popping and take my attention from what it is that I'm doing. And it's not about let's stop it, let's prevent all this change from happening and stick to the old ways. That's gone. Now it's for us to really adapt and start, just like the chamber is doing, start bringing creative ways of getting these people to get what they need from their social environment at work, to increase their engagement and productivity so that people are still content, happy, excited to come in every day. Or, you know, people understand or can make some sacrifices in terms of their home life to show up and deliver what needs to be delivered at work. Work-life balance is a really old concept, and it's not a 50-50. It's about managing priorities and making it work as best we can. The situation is challenging enough. Expecting employees to just deliver is just not going to work moving forward. So realize that you do not see your employees every day, that you do not see what truly is going on. So for these guys, you know, for us right now, because we can't see our employees and colleagues, there's this big who to turn to. I was talking to a personal friend of mine who is an author about a well-being package, and she, quite rightly so, started talking to me about the fact that she used to be an alcoholic, obviously no longer, but about the fact that people are starting drinking, which is absolutely fine. It's the way that we relax, but this being at home seems to have, you know, loosened those barriers a little bit. Now imagine you have an employee or even a business owner that is taking, you know, let's have a glass of wine from 4 o'clock every day or so on, and then becomes slightly addicted. This is not something that the workplace, you know, would realize. In the past, you would notice if someone, you know, has got a tendency to drink, or has some, you know, they've lost a parent or a family member. You know, these are things that you would notice, you know, by the way they walk, by the way they, you know, they sit in meetings and so on. And they would have this one-to-one support. They could speak to their colleagues, their manager, leadership, or HR, and they would have this network. Now, because they're on their own at home at their desk, the onus is on them to go out there and say, hey, I have a problem, to say, hey, I've started drinking, or I've had one too many rows with my partner, or I'm feeling really lonely, and I'm starting to get negative thoughts, and so on. And these are not things that people like to bring in the workplace. So this is where the solution of having an employee assistance program comes in, where a lot of organizations, specifically through the help of their medical insurance providers, can offer employee assistance programs. And there are some really good out there, really good ones out there. So if you need any recommendations, feel free to reach out, and I'll give you some recommendations as to some really good programs. The problem with the employee assistance program, although it does cover a wide range of support activities, and you also have You also have Mental Health UK that is out there, the Samaritans and so on, is that it requires from the employee to take that first step. And this is not something that is easy for an individual to, you know, already struggle at home, potentially struggle in their own performance, raise their hand to their employer and say, hey, I have a problem. So again, in the context of communication, if I'm HR or business leader or something like that of a company that offers an employee assistance program, I would add the number to my signature so that the employee might receive an email and say, oh, I have an employee assistance program. You know, maybe I'll want to give them a call. I would still argue that right now, although, you know, we can offer employee assistance programs, the manager may notice something through tone of voice, through performance and so on. I would question as to whether, in terms of employee well-being, it is still enough. You know, are we proactively going out there and looking after our employees? I think, and I will talk about this a little bit later, I think there are opportunities to actually bring wellness into the workplace, where rather than just keep it on the periphery. I know when I work with large corporate organizations, a lot of them assume that having an employee assistance program in place will cover them. You know, we have the program now, we don't need to worry anymore about employee mental and physical well-being. These days, things are changing. As I was saying earlier on, you know, it's really looking after the human, bringing the human into the workplace, rather than just keeping the humanity at bay and just requiring, you know, the performance from the individual.
So, Julie, just to ask, what kind of areas does the employee assistance program cover? Is there areas on that are touched on that affect the actual culture and performance of a company?
So an employee assistance program, it really depends on what you purchase or what is offered to you. Typically, it is kind of a confidential line where you can talk about, you know, your stress or bereavement or drug and alcohol issues or, you know, bullying, harassment. It's a confidential line that you can actually use and talk with a qualified expert about what is happening.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. But if this doesn't exist, then there's also, you know, as I mentioned, Mental Health UK. It now is a great time for anyone who is interested in doing a mental aid first aider course. They're really interesting and very powerful. Or, you know, you also have the Samaritans and lots of organizations out there which are willing to help. So this is exactly where I'm encouraging organizations to think about, you know, is this a two-way dialogue? Or is this a three-way dialogue? Or should this be a community dialogue? You know your organization, you know your culture. And it's really thinking, how do we communicate? What do we communicate about? How ready is that information out there for our employees or even ourselves to consume? And how are we looking after the humanity within our organization to make sure that well-being is a key issue within our business? So alternatives, apologies there, alternatives that you may want to consider, and this is something that we offer within our community at Very HR, is we also have WhatsApp groups. What I found with the younger generations is that people don't want to talk anymore. A lot of people find it hard to pick up the phone. However, going on Facebook, saying, hey, I'm feeling this way, it seems to be a lot more acceptable. So we have opened a WhatsApp line for employees to give them the ability to chat or speak to the community of experts that Very HR works with.
So Julie, just a quick question. How would, if somebody's interested, how would they engage in that that WhatsApp group that you've got set up?
Sure, they can reach out to hello@veryhr.co.uk, and we'll take them through the process of understanding what the offering is and sign them up.
Excellent. Is there details on your website?
Not right now, because updating websites is time consuming and so on, but I will. The plan is that today there are the whole social media campaign is kicking in. So on the Very HR page on LinkedIn and Facebook, we'll be publicizing all of that new offering.
Perfect. Thank you.
Today is the day, I believe.
Excellent. So Julie will be sharing her contact details towards the end of the slides of her presentation, so you can access her email and also connect with Julie via LinkedIn. So you're on LinkedIn, Julie.
Yes.
And yeah, so if you are interested in being part of this group, then get the details from Julie. Thank you.
Thank you, Narinda. So another tip, and I know that's one that as a business owner myself, I've really battled with this one. Because what I'm hearing out there from the communities in which I operate and so on, it's about now's the opportunity, now's the time to rethink your value proposition. There are so many companies out there that are offering free webinars, you know, rethink your business model, rethink your value prop, rethink your purpose, rethink and so on. And personally, I myself have been rather overwhelmed and thinking, well, yes, I agree. The world is changing. The way we do business and interact is changing. There are challenges right now which need to be overcome. What will that mean for the future and so on? And I've been toiling with completely amending my business model and what will that mean for my employees. And then I've just come to the realization that it's about adapting. So in terms of the pressure we put on ourselves and our employees, it's really about simply adapting. And the practical way of looking at how we adapt and how we make the best of what we have is in three distinct areas. Take stock of disruptive rituals. So as I was saying in the first part, you know, look at how you communicate. Where do you communicate? About what? How do you get insights from your clients? In the past, you may have, you know, met them face to face. Now, you know, maybe you just want to have yet another Zoom call with them. How do you advertise? Where are your clients right now? What can they afford? Where are your employees right now? What do they need? And it's adapting. It's not about, you know, taking all of your resources out of your business and starting from scratch. It's about just taking stock. So pausing. And I really enjoy working with my team on this particular piece. So what we have done, obviously we've had a little bit more time to ourselves. What we have done is actually had more team calls where we talked about our overall purpose, our resource, basically did a SWOT, to be honest, and talk about our opportunities and where people felt that we can move forward with this. So it was about being creative, bringing your staff and rallying them and unifying them around this bigger cause. And what I've seen coming from that is that a lot of organizations, the ones that are being talked about in the press, the ones that I see are driven to overcome what is happening, are bringing all of their staff, all of their resources around a purpose. And the purpose is, I would say, one of the most encouraging, exciting, engaging principles in any organizations. Usually when I talk about purpose in companies, I like to play that clip from the Fellowship of the Ring. So I'm pretty sure all of you can recall this movie, when we have all of the great warriors meeting in the elf castle. Excuse me if I'm, just getting rid of some of the details, but everyone is fighting and arguing for their own region. Well, oh gosh, not the trolls, but well, this tribe should go and fight because they have this strength. No, this tribe, no. Everybody's fighting. And then you have one individual who has nothing, Frodo, who actually steps up and says, I will take the ring. At that point, everybody looks at him and decides to, that's where the fellowship is created. Robert Dilts talks about this himself. But I really like this moment where it is one individual taking on the purpose that is bigger than himself, bigger than anything around them, and everyone rallies to that. And all of the egos just kind of melt away. All of the troubles, the stress, and so on. Everybody rallies behind a purpose. And I really do think that the more altruistic the purpose is, the greater the purpose is, the easier it is for business owners, employees, and so on to just follow it, and in a effortless and flowing way, which makes it a lot easier to then bring in the vision and strategy. So spending time on really understanding your purpose, or how your purpose can be adapted to this situation, will bring a lot of benefits to overall employee well-being. You're not like, I don't come in every day to just do HR. My purpose and my company's purpose is really to bring another way of working into the working place. We like to call ourselves corporate healers in a way, but by bringing this message and understanding that things in business need to change, I'm rallying my team around this purpose. And this is, beyond me, beyond my, my business aspirations. This is a following. And this is why, I get incredibly passionate about this. And you can see it today. A lot of businesses right now are using, this fight against the coronavirus in a very altruistic way to bring their teams together. These are just little ones, but you can think of significant examples, quite a few of them, where where people just want to follow a great cause. Before COVID-19, there were the charity days. Company were doing that, bringing teams together to actually feed the homeless and so on. There's so much that can be done, and you use this to bring your teams together, because they will do it gladly. They will do it with little to no ego. I wrote an article, I think about 6 months ago, around altruism and why, and the chemicals that it highlights in your brain. It's very close to mindfulness. It's very good for us. When we do good, selfless deeds, we feel great about it. So use that more within the business world to bring that humanity, to bring communities within your business, and wrap it all in your purpose. And people will really start, it will become effortless to just follow the message, and so on. The final piece that I really wanted to bring was around building EQ. EQ stands for emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence starts with yourself. How do you know yourself? How do you recognize patterns of stress, or of tiredness, or anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt, and so on? How do you manage yourself? Once you understand yourself, then you can start understanding others. And right now, I just had a little play with, some words. A lot of people have so many worries, and it can consume you. I coach quite a lot of individuals right now who can't sleep, who can't focus, and because they can't focus, well, they're not performing at work. Therefore, are they going to lose their jobs? And what's going to happen to finances and their well-being? And it's eating them up. And stress is probably the number one killer disease. Here's a list of just a few of the symptoms coming from stress. So there's a lot that can be done to increase EQ, and this is where the whole discussion with employee assistance programs are great. However, the business can do so much more internally to develop this resilience. The model of change that I showed a couple of slides ago, this curve, just explaining that to your staff or employee base, just going, hey, what you're going through is completely normal, and guess what, I've gone through it myself. That just kind of takes a notch out of the, okay, I'm not doing too bad. Helping people to understand that work-life balance doesn't need to be 50-50. That in these circumstances, looking after, kids and a job and everything else doesn't have to be perfect. Provide additional one-to-one support. You may have an employee going through bereavement. In this case, you may want to give them access to some specialists. You may have an employee who starts acknowledging an issue with drinking or having more rows with a spouse. We are living in a pressurized environment. Providing them with additional one-to-one support also helps this general rise in emotional intelligence. So what we have done at Very HR is we've actually bought a cohort of, right now there are 15 well-being professionals. So here's a list of only 4 of the programs we can offer organizations. I think in total we have about 50 of them, but right now we've compiled a whole list of different topics, and we can do one-offs in organizations. Or you can see here with the mindfulness program, it's more of an 8 weeks. We do intros, and then if people want to buy into it, then we can offer the 8 weeks programs. All of these right now are online. If or when an organization signs up to one of the workshops, to the WhatsApp group, you also get access to these 15 professionals at a reduced rate. So if an employee wants to have a one-to-one with, let's say, a meditation expert or a fitness expert or a well-being mental coach or an expert on alcoholism, and so on, these guys are just phenomenal, then they have access to these guys at a reduced rate, and you don't typically have to pay for it. So it's really looking at from internally, how can you get the best out of your people? How can you get them the support that they might need? So engagement and well-being is about providing support, and just let them know that it's okay to feel stressed and anxious and worry. We all do. I think I was also talking to a friend of mine who is very, very emotional about what is happening right now, and it's having an impact on her ability to work. Her manager told her, well, don't worry about it. What I need you to do is 1, 2, 3, and I need you to do these by the end of the week. But they are flexible as to the amount of desk time or availability time she has, or they support her in providing solutions as to how she can manage the different priorities. As a coach, I'm coaching quite a few people on how can they get the best out of themselves at their working desks with their families, because it's not about worrying about your family and your work at the same time. It's about regenerating yourself from the inside. And it's really, in that communication model, it's really about checking in and staying connected. So your leaders are key in this. It's about bringing them in to that model. I won't have, oh, here, this is a really exciting, exciting, I got excited. But if you would for a minute, take a pen and a pencil and write the number 35,000. And then multiply it by the number of employees that you have. 35,000 is actually the number of decisions made by one individual every day. So what we want to do is enable employees to make the right decisions for themselves as well as the business. And just realizing the sheer amount of decisions that anyone has to make on a day-to-day basis is just mind-blowing. So how can an employee help themselves? And hopefully I'll be producing this particular sheet on the social media for Very HR. But for tips for employees, and it makes a lot of sense, it's around having your daily routine. Wake up, take a shower, get dressed, and have some clear amount of time in your diary where you can take different tasks. We are creatures of routine. It helps us to gain normality and also get a sense of safety. My son is going through virtual school right now. The rule is do not wear your PJs. So the same applies to us adults. Look after yourself, get your routine going. Then we are all sitting on, some of us can be on our couches, some of us have desks, kitchen countertops. It's about really making sure we're sitting in the most efficient way. One of my partners actually offers free workstation assessments at the moment. So if you're interested in using her services, definitely let me know. It is not just about getting an employee to sign a waiver. Any opportunity you have to speak to your team on the phone or via Zoom, use it. Don't just get them to sign papers that they won't read and they'll just sign up. So same thing, get them moving. There are lots of free activities. I personally do a stretch and meditate every morning with my Tai Chi instructor. I know of free yoga classes. Our partner who delivers the fitness programs within the wellbeing package does free Sunday boot camps. There are tons of things. You can even set up your own company. Let's stretch and jog, for example, every day at 12 for 10 minutes, and everybody has their webcam, and it can be a fun company thing to do. So think creatively, and also make sure that you have a good etiquette in terms of what happens online. Before having a Zoom meeting, do you have an agenda? Do people know why they're showing up? This is really important. Create some mindfulness, meditation practice, encourage people to rest, and just keep all of these habits going. So this is where, Very HR and our team can come in and provide, workshops, online and remote for yourselves and your teams. We will offer face-to-face sessions in various languages once we can travel. And then we can also introduce you to our cohort of wellness experts. I think, no, I don't have the pictures of them, but I will share them. We will also, or we are also offering well-being audits. So that's where we actually take the time to call your staff and then produce a report as to what can you actually deliver for your teams to look after the well-being. And here's just a couple of pictures of some of the people who are on the cohorts. You obviously have myself, Julie, but we have relationship coaches, hypnotherapists, coaches, and so on. And it's about engaging with your workforce. These are defining moments for you. Make sure you look after your own well-being before you can actually provide it to others. You are the most important person in your life. You can impact change if you are sufficiently rejuvenated, and if your mind is in a good place. So that's pretty much from me. Thank you very much for listening. If you'd like more information, feel free to reach out directly to myself or connect with Very HR on LinkedIn or Facebook.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Julie, for delivering a very engaging and educational webinar today. So you've provided great tips and tools on employee wellbeing whilst working remotely. So it's been great. Thank you very much. And it's great having you on board as a presenter. So just moving over to the next slide. So it's a chamber slide, and it just highlights how the chamber has launched a business continuity toolkit, which is aimed at ensuring you've got access to a single portal. So if you need any advice, guidance, assistance in terms of COVID-19, then there's a business toolkit available on our website. There's a hub that's been created with some very useful links. Please do complete the business impact tracker survey. Your input is very valuable, and then we can actually liaise, or the BCC will then feed that information over to the government. So if there's any issues, concerns, they will be looked at. Okay, the next slide. So this is our membership model. Each tier is designed to attract a business depending on the level of exposure they wish to gain, as well as savings that can be made. So this is all the different tiers that we have as part of our membership. And yes, we have evolved. So we've changed our membership model. So it's a value-based membership model that we now have in place. So thank you again to Julie for delivering a great webinar today. Here's Julie's contact details. They're also in a couple of previous slides as well. Please do connect with Julie via LinkedIn, and she can then share any information that you may require. If you do have any questions, please post them through now, and then Julie will answer them accordingly. So great. So thank you very much once again to all the listeners. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, it has been recorded, so you can go into our webinar library, which is on our website, and listen to it again, and also share amongst your network. So that's great. Julie, anything else you would like to maybe quickly just touch on, or is it all okay?
No, just keep well, everyone.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.